Let's share a bit more about myself, a bit more about my journey of beginnings and endings. It has been a special journey for sure to get where I am today, and I'm still evolving, but it's something that I truly want to share in order for us to connect in a more profound way. So, of course, I'm a creator, a coach. I've been doing many things on my journey, but first of all, I want to share my personal story, then a bit more about my study and professionality, my trials and tribulations, my transformational trajectory, and also a bit more about my interests, experiences, and shifts that I've been experiencing along my journey. So, let's just move this over here. Why am I sharing again my story, who I am, and where I come from? You can get to know me a bit better. You can connect with me personally. Who knows in the future? I truly have this deep desire to create a physical place where we can meet up and have engaging conversations, engaging events, and experiences in real life. So important to lay the foundations today to connect on a more profound level. There are a lot of like coaches out there who might not want to connect, but I'm an energetical being. I'm a physical person. I love to connect and see you, yeah, open up and connect as well, not just with me, but with the whole community. It's also an opportunity to gain more insights. It's also going to be an opportunity to see kind of how I came to this process of self-creation. And maybe you can even recognize old patterns or see similarities on your personal journey as well. You can learn to see the power of story, but also learn to see from an observational perspective the bigger picture of life. So my personality, I've always had this more of an internal attitude, especially when I was younger. It's not that I don't want to connect. I love connecting, again, as I mentioned before, but I need some empowering energetical exchange. And of course, I went through these classical ideas of growing up to puberty, young adulthood, of going out, etc. But inherently, from a natural perspective of how I am as a person, I'm more a silent, timid, highly empathic person, very creative, observant, always thinking, curious, but I am also very empowered, positive. I think of myself as honorable, supportive, self-invested, a believer, always a builder as well, inspired, and yeah, see things in a maybe more deep way, but that's more of a result of my curiosity for life. I grew up in Antwerp, Belgium. I was born in 1986 in a big family. I was the last to come from a twin. I have a twin sister. I came a bit later. I have one older sister and two older brothers. It's always, I think, also fun to see how the brothers, sisters, and parents show up to see kind of like the energy dynamics of who I am today. Alrighty, the roots, my parents. This is where kind of like where my feminine and masculine energy came from. Again, it's important to mention this is not per se about genders. It's more about the deeper energy, and we're going to go through this exercise in the future as well, where you kind of get where your energy comes from. So my mother was more of the artistical side, the more drawing, painting, making music, singing, very talented on many levels. She was always working on personal projects such as books, art, etc. Very gentle, positive, light, bright spirits, caring, giving, supportive, and easy communicator. She lost her mother at a very young age, and her father was a very highly logical yet intelligent musician and also art collector and neurologist, a doctor. My father was much more of a logical, practical, strong handyman, very physical, working with horses, steel, also craftsman with wood. Later on, he worked more on the Port of Antwerp logistics side, very hardworking, but also very sportive. This is where I kind of like gained my interests into sports and fitness and training, where my mother's side gave me more of an interest in the creative side of life. So he was a cyclist, ski monitor, football coach next to his handyman crafts and logistics sites as his real job as well. Very opposite to my mother, logical, rational, mentally heavy-minded, very let's say very he was very funny, but also difficult communicator, and he also had this heavy energy in the sense of like easily pulling life towards a self-centered, depressed energy, right? He lost his father at a very young age, who was worked at the gendarmerie. That's kind of like the police, just above the police, serving in the army in Belgium. So you can kind of also see I think it's important to share the loss of their of my grandparents. I never met them. They lost them when they were still both 16. But it's important to mention to also see where I come from. My energy of fears, of death, of healing, of disease, of love, right? It's important for you as well to start and see where your energy comes from. It didn't just start when you were born, it didn't just start in your puberty, or it didn't just start at any events later in your adult life. No, it's been passed on from generation to generation. And I don't want to say like, hey, you are here to break this generational curse. It's kind of like very entitled, because every generation is working on healing the next line in their own way with their own gifts and skills. But it is kind of like creating this awareness of like everything is connected, obviously, right? All right. My career, my educational and professional journey. I'm not going to go too much in depth, but you can kind of get an idea of like what my background is. So I studied as a product designer. I always was curious to do something creative, and product design was very much of a practical, but also very much of a creative direction. It was a heavy direction, a lot of like statistics, economics, design, mechanically, style-wise, mathematics, physics, all these things, but it was also very creative, working hands-on, right? In that period of time, I did start it in Belgium, but I also started later on combining it with working as a student, as a bartender, restaurant manager, and of course before doing a lot of like different student jobs. But I did notice that working as a bartender and doing my studies wasn't really the best kind of combination. I did finish my bachelor's, did my first master's, but then eventually after a big Euro trip, I decided like this is not for me anymore. I didn't feel at home in this too logical creating side of life. I wanted to, work on my own. I realized that soon enough. So eventually I continued working as a bartender, quit my studies, and I just started to use the skills that I learned in product design, like working graphically, to create logos, to start diving into graphical design, web design, brand design. This is kind of like how I started working as an independent freelancer, just to use the skills that I taught myself, right? I learned some skills in school, and then I bought some books on personal branding, and this is like kind of where I started my interest in the creative side, but more on a connection with like who you are as a person. That's why it's a personal brand, right? Of course, I always had a huge passion for healing, for physical exploration, mental exploration, emotional, spiritual, especially exploration. I always want to be some type of like, I always used to love those Bruce Lee types who had this like connection between the external and internal world, the physical and the mental mastery side of life. So eventually I had a huge breakdown. I was totally tired of working in Belgium, juggling all these balls of working as a bartender, and graphical design was not working that way that I wanted. And I wanted to step into what I always wanted to do, was coaching, physicality, mentality, right? So eventually I said like, screw you guys, I'm leaving this country. And then I moved to Canada. It was 2016. I left with like 2,000 euro that I borrowed. I didn't have any money in my pocket, didn't have a job, but just left everything behind. I left because, of course, I was tired of my job, but I also had this innate calling of I need to go somewhere else. And of course, as you know, traveling, going outside of your comfort zone, meeting new people, just abandoning, not forever, but for a while, your family, your friends, your comfort cocoon for a while is creating opportunities for you to totally shift and shape your world as you see it. And that happened for me, right? So I moved, and eventually I had a massive struggle arriving there. Initially, my job worked. I managed to work as a freelance designer, but eventually the projects didn't work out because I was just too overwhelmed by living a new life, trying to manage everything financially. So the first 3 months were not as rainbowishly rose-colored glasses that I thought it was going to be. I had beautiful adventures for sure, but I did learn to man up and see, okay, I need to change some things. Eventually, I got a job as a retail manager for a store called RYU. It's Respect Your Universe, and that was more of like a clothing fitness brand store, like kind of like the early, very, very early version of like a Nike, right? A sports brand. But the cool thing was they had like a clothing retail shop, and on the first floor there was a gym. So they had this offer where you can buy a piece of clothing, get 25% discount, and also you can actually join in the morning, midday, or evening for a free class. So there were classes organized in the shop. So whoever was connected to the brand as an ambassador or just people working there could give classes to clients where you're just not buying the clothes but actually testing them and being free to work out. That was also about creating a community. And this is where I realized like this is what my country was missing, this idea of like, let's create a community. That's what I always wanted to do, and this is what I'm creating right here, right now, right? But this actually gave me the opportunity to, of course, initially do something that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to fold clothes. I didn't want to do these things, but I needed to realize that I needed to move somewhere in the direction of what I wanted to do, was being engaged with physical training. So eventually, in the community of the company was very strong, and they pushed me to actually start my license as a personal trainer, because they gave me the opportunity to give some classes, and they realized, okay, this guy has potential. Why don't you do a personal training coach? Eventually, as time passed on, I loved working for the company for half a year. I didn't get a visa permission to stay longer. That's a whole other story, not something to dive into now, but I had to come back. I finished my personal training course in Belgium. In Belgium, I started diving deep into educations, traveled to a lot of places inside Europe to gain more knowledge in Switzerland, Greece, Italy, to gain knowledge about learning, also not just physically, but also online. So this kind of started like this next level journey of exploration. I've been on an exploration, especially self-education, for many, many years before. I was always curious, very interested, but this truly sparked the life that I wanted to live in the health coaching lifestyle business, right? Eventually, I did manage to start working for a club to get my license. I had to start from the beginning, folding towels, refilling soaps in the showers in the gym. But eventually, after I think maybe a year or two of like working in 3-4 clubs, very early in the morning, 6 o'clock opening up, to late beyond 11 o'clock in the evening, going with my bike to all these clubs. But eventually, I managed to convince the boss, like, hey, I've had enough. Now I do want to work as a personal trainer, not for the club anymore, advising people, folding towels. I did my steps up, but eventually I was like, let's do it. And he gave me opportunity to do so, and that like sparked everything. That was the first time in my life where I became my own boss. Had my clients in the club, had a thriving business, had a lot of clients every day for weeks and weeks and weeks. But of course, eventually, again, life gives us this call and says it's time to move up. And that was actually just when COVID hit. And that gave me the opportunity, because I always wanted to not just work in a club and not just coach people physically, but also mentally. They gave me the opportunity actually to leave again. And then I decided to leave to Costa Rica, Colombia with the money that I saved, and took a chance to work as an online coach. I did do a lot of like courses outside of it with different type of people to actually learn how to work online and how to push, or not push is not the right word, to promote my own services from a loving space as well, something that I learned myself from an honest place. Um, and that really gave me the opportunity to live and travel where I wanted to go with my own business. Of course, this was the main quest. There were some side quests of like using my branding skills to support my sister's brand of creating a handbag brand in South Africa, where we visited and checked the production line, etc., and set that all up. I also dabbled a bit into making NFT collections. So as you see, there were many, many side quests, too much to explain. But just to show you, I've put in a tremendous amount of effort in many, many places in life to become this multidimensional and see life from a grander perspective. I've trained myself to own a lot of skills from an honest place to create something hopefully of tremendous value where you can truly pluck the fruits from. But this at least is going to give you some perspective. So as you kind of see, I moved from more of an creative branding perspective as a profession, freelancing, to a more what I always wanted to create more of a conscious personal development. But the creative creation side never left me, right? I learned to design products, brands, websites, businesses, logos, all that stuff, to eventually come back to what I truly love, designing or helping people to create themselves, right? This is the essence of what I love doing. But I needed that practice and seeing those systems in the other sides of life to implement those systems in a more human way. Something very important that I want to share. This might seem like a joyful process, but there has been a lot of ups and downs. And this is the natural part of life. This is a natural part of the process. And I've always understood that there's meaning behind everything, but we have to learn to create it ourselves. And for me, my biggest dark night of the soul was when I got tinnitus. I was already just before I left Canada, but just as going out with the boys before we left on a typical boys trip of drinking and having fun. Um, Being a young adult, just being normal, conditioned, living life as everybody else. I always had this deeper voice, but I was not really listening to it. And I went out on a night before we took the plane to party even longer for a week. And not that there's something bad with, we need to go to these experiences, but for me, it was a bad event because eventually I went to the party and I came out and I felt like there's something wrong. And I was half deaf. I had this crazy ringing in my ears. I did take a plane, which only made it worse. The first day of partying in another country made it worse. But eventually, after the trip, I realized my life has to change, right? This was also a big catalyst for me. I couldn't work as a bartender anymore. Any noise, anything like external, just my ears couldn't handle anything. So I literally life was saying, if you're not listening, I'm gonna slap you in the face big time. And that was my biggest slap in my life. Because even social connection, everything with too much noise was too much for me. So this pushed me into a place of silence. Literally for over a year, I didn't go any places, no partying. If I went somewhere, earplugs. So this silenced me off of the world of noise, quite literally, right? This was the most beautiful portal for me. I didn't realize it then. It went with a lot of suffering, but eventually it brought me to where I am right now. So I can see the gift of this happening to me. It was a brutal event, but also beautiful. So that kind of led me to dive deeper, even more into the journey of life. I was already a big diver, let's say, into the practices of life, but this gave me this extra push to finally open up and really try many things. And it was a lot of going deeper and deeper and hitting even deeper rock bottoms. But eventually there was a place where I couldn't go deeper and had to climb myself back up. So I tried everything from healthy diets, the typical veganism, keto, caveman diets, plant-based fasting, trainings, you name it. Somatic practices, cold shower, sweat lodges in Mexico, traveling, ayahuasca, cacao, mushroom rapé, sound therapy, gestalt, color therapy, light eye therapy, you name it, moving countries. My journey has been in a lot of places, and it's important for me to share this, that I'm not just sharing again from a place of information. I'm sharing from a place of I've actually been there, right? I understand how you feel wherever you are stuck because I've played and dabbled in so many things that I understand what it means to be stuck, what it means to be lost, what it means to be depressed. I understand what it means to be physically hurt, emotionally hurt, spiritually lost, completely lost, empty. I know what that feels like, and this is why I'm sharing this, not from a place of like fluffy duffy, non-integrative, non-embodied, copying other people's messaging. No, I've been there. I know what it means, right? And I want to share that from an honest place. And this is not to glorify anything. I just want to share that it's just honest, real experience that I've been through, right? Um, so again, I've been through a lot of things. I tried a lot. Also stopped with alcohol a long time ago. Not that there's anything bad with it. We'll have personal conversations about many of these things, about ceremonies, and again, but these were just all experiences. And as you can see, the guideline, there's like a lot of red stripes where impactful events happened to me. So I dabbled again in many different practices. Not, I'm not going to dive into any of them too deep, but at least you get an idea. So both on the physical side as well as on the, let's say, more metaphysical side of life, more of the symbolic, spiritual, cosmic, outside of school of life to more of the typical schooling, structural, scientific way. Even in my workshops that I followed, I always had the interest of not just going to this practical, scientifical learning programs or coaches, but also to the guys and girls, women and men, who were thinking outside of the box. Very weird, maybe too far, but at least that gave me the biggest spectrum. Never be too biased, always stay open, right? So physical injuries, moving to Canada, having other things happening, tearing muscles, herniated disc, skin infections, ear problems, financially not being paid, being as broke as hell, loaning money, things not working out, all these things, right? So mentally, physically, financially, environmentally, socially, being disconnected with my years, anxiety, worry, aloneness, misunderstood, wanting to be seen, not feeling connections. I've been there, right? Empty, job-wise, not feeling connections, without purpose, unfulfilled, never satisfied, always searching, right? I'm just sharing what I've been through. I was always searching for answers, but never can truly find it in anything. Like I kept on diving deeper and deeper and deeper into endless practices, right? Again, not diving too deep, but eventually I came onto this point in my life and I was like, okay, I need to start asking some bigger questions because I was feeling like instead of I wasn't escaping life anymore, but I was just diving too deep. I was just enduring life. I'll explain more about this concept later, but I still felt lost. Things weren't integrating, so I started asking bigger questions. For who am I doing all of this? What am I trying to prove? Why am I doing this? Where am I going with all of this? What am I trying to achieve with all of this? And when will I ever find this big question? Will I find peace? Eventually I started asking myself, what am I running away from? What is truly myself? And I realized that I was hiding, playing small by not tuning into my own voice. I was always looking for external practices. That's a key phase of life. But again, that's going to be explained in the archetypes. But I was not truly engaging within the possibilities of my own potential, of my innate intelligence. I wasn't truly listening. So I asked myself, am I running towards the life I want, or am I running away from the life I fear? So it was not per se what I was doing, but it was the energy in which I was doing things. I was escaping my energy, even though the practices were more, let's say, holistically empowered or enchanting storytelling wise, because I was on a healing journey. But they were still coming from a place of an energy that was like not appreciative of myself. All right. So I was always like, this is not working for me, because it was not working for me because I wasn't accepting my own energy. So instead of asking, will it work for me, from self limiting doubt, I came to a place of like asking myself, will I work for it, from a self loving driven place, right? Self limiting doubts, again, switching it up for self loving drive. And it's that energy shift which made me realize that that was the key that I was looking for. Of course, I'll explain more about that later, but it was this internal shift, this energetic elevation. And of course, it wasn't just a moment, it was like this energy density in myself building up. Every little experience was this adding to that energy that allowed it to eventually collapse in itself, because there was enough energy to burst out of my previous version, right? This internal energy intention changed the set of seeing myself, right? And that eventually led me to start mapping my whole journey and start creating this understanding, this observational practice and process for you to actually get to work with, right? And I realized, okay, this is not just for me anymore. I need to start sharing, right? This is also actually a part of the healing that I experienced, not realizing, okay, this journey is just not solely about me. I can keep on self-suffering, keep on self-focusing. I need to share. And this has been actually one of the biggest lights in my life, to help other people like yourself who are here right now, which I'm again so grateful for, to, yeah, tune in to this knowledge and insights. So change started happening when I stopped hiding and started sharing my gifts. I used the skills I had and embraced the stage where I was. I stopped looking for answers and started responding with inspired action. Not only listened to myself, but showed up to myself completely, in imperfections and in every situation. I just showed up. I used my obstacles as an opportunity to grow and be of service. I helped previous versions of myself to transmute pain into power. And on some level, some of you are previous versions of me, of course, in another puzzle, but that's why you're here. That's why you feel called, because some part of you resonates with what I have. And that's also a gift that you can use in the future, whether you're a coach or a person wanting to be of service to somebody else. You can always help a previous version of yourself. I worked on myself every single day, and I became relentlessly determined to see it through no matter what. And I haven't looked back ever since. Not to say that it hasn't gone with its ups and downs, but I started to understand why they were happening, and I could gain, or I had gained, the ability to move through it quicker from a place of acceptance instead of denying it. Right now, how do I see my job after sharing my journey, how do I see my job, my role in your reality? I want to move you beyond this first timer effect. Like when you start something, it's like, oh, I'm seeing the benefits. No, I just don't want you to feel only short term benefits. I want to create solutions that are just not band-aids temporarily. No, I want to create something that is long-term healing for you, long-term personal fulfillment, solutions that are lasting, right? I want to push beyond this or guide you beyond this self-pushing anxiety of feeling overwhelmed, confused, and non-accepting into this energy of calmness, clarity, confidence, and self-allowance, right? You accept yourself, you give yourself also permission to step into something exciting and beautiful. It's moving beyond fleeting social media trends, tricks, and misaligned hacks. There's so many of them, into an appreciative, aligned, and action taking lifestyle. Not from a place of pressure, not just consistency, but truly curiosity and beauty, and also calmness, enjoying every single moment in presence, right? I want to save you time, mistakes, frustrations, and welcome a space of revelations, wins, and devotion, right? This is what I'm trying to create for you. And we're going to go and create this together because I need you with me. I need this community as well, but especially you. You need to decide to do it for yourself. I can hold your hand. I can't hold your hand. I can guide the way, show you the door, but you have to step through it. It's a cliche idea, but it's very much true, right? You need to drink your own medicine. You need to walk your way. This is how it's going to happen. I can show you, but you need to save yourself. You need to find your own power. I don't want to bombard you with more information. I'm going to give you some information for sure, but I don't want to cloud you even more. I want to bring you on a journey of implementation, doing. I want to guide you through more portals of inner peace and power and less rabbit holes of confusion and illusion. I aim to bring a fresh breath of awareness and aliveness through a simple yet strong, profound yet practical approach, with as less external influence as possible. It might sound paradoxical, but it's my goal to kind of like reawaken your own power, right? That you feel like I can do this myself, because I don't want to influence your journey too much. Life, I'm not smarter than the cosmic intelligence or the creative intelligence of life. No, I'm just a milestone, not really a milestone, but more like an accelerator. I push you in more of a direction. I'm a light on your path that the universe has given you, but eventually you need to learn to tap into the universe itself, where you feel and see these signs yourself. I truly think that success isn't anything externally, but it's more of the success rate is your ability to transfer these teachings, these beliefs, these behaviors inside yourself. I can transfer. I hold a very strong belief in myself. I have a very strong set of behaviors, how I live. I live very empowered, very inspired. I just have this massive belief energy in life, in the beauty, in the magic. I want you to come into the space where you can hold this energy yourself. And if I can just even give you a little bit of that energy, and if the conscious community can do that, that's the biggest part of success. And once that energy, that spark has lifted up, you make it into a fire. You keep the fuel alive. You create that momentum. So that is success, a transfer of this kind of like energetical space that I can carry, but you need to learn to carry it yourself. And that is actually the most important of all this practice, learning to carry that energy field yourself. All right. I'm super, super happy to have you here. And I'm very excited to start this journey with you and with this community and see the results coming off of this course this adventure that you're taking on. All right. I'll see you on the other side.